started. Good evening, welcome back. Welcome anyone who's new. My name's Clare. I didn't introduce myself last week, but I am now. I'll start with the refuge prayer that we talked about last week, and then qualify a few things I said last week as well. I can go on. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the highest assembly. From the virtuous merit that I collect by practicing giving and the other perfections, may I attain the state of a Buddha in order to benefit all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the highest assembly. From the virtuous merit that I collect by practicing giving and the other perfections, may I attain the state of a Buddha in order to benefit all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the highest assembly. From the virtuous merit that I collect by practicing giving and the other perfections, may I attain the state of a Buddha in order to benefit all sentient beings. So as we discussed last week, that we call that prayer refuge and bodhicitta. And bodhicitta might be a word that some of you know, some of you may not. It's a Sanskrit word that talks about a state of mind, and the state of mind is the wish to become enlightened in order to benefit other sentient beings. So you have that extra thing that you yourself want to be free, but the reason that you want to be free is because you're aware of the suffering in the world and you're aware of your own suffering. And because you're aware of your own suffering, then you can relate to others' suffering as well, and that other people suffer in exactly the same ways as you do. And so when you look around and think, well, everyone is suffering to some degree, then you think it's not enough that I would free myself and just leave everybody else to suffer. You'd think how nice it would be if you could actually help others as well and free them as well. So then you think, well, how can I possibly do this huge task? And the way that you can actually benefit others is by freeing yourself. So you're not leaving yourself behind, like putting others, it kind of is that kind of mind. You would like others to be happy. Even before yourself, you would like others to be free. But in doing that, in that thought, you can't help but free yourself with that thought, because it comes back to that thing of, like in the prayer, the perfection of generosity and the other, by practicing generosity and the other perfections, generosity being the first of the 6 perfections. In being generous, in the moment that you're being generous, you're not thinking of yourself, you're thinking of the other. And it's that thing of, if you go and buy a present for somebody and you're thinking of them and you want to make them happy and you think of what they like and you find out what would be good to buy for them, and you buy it and you're kind of really pleased with yourself, you're excited to give them the present and want them to be happy with it. And when they are happy with it, you're really pleased. It makes you feel good that you've done this nice thing for the other person. But you're actually giving something away. You've spent your money or your time or whatever, and you're giving. But the end product for yourself is that you've gained happiness from that. You've gained some benefit from that. So it follows that the more that you have these thoughts of generosity and wishing others to be happy. And generosity doesn't necessarily mean, material things. It's giving of your time, giving someone an ear that just needs to talk, and where you normally think, oh my God, here they come again, and you will give them the time. You'll be patient and listen. And often, I know from my own experience, if I've got something going on and someone just listens and they show that they care just by listening. They don't have to actually give me any advice or say anything, but they're not going, yeah, righto. They're listening, and you can tell that they're kind of with you and want to support you. And I've walked away feeling much better. The problem hasn't changed. The issue's still there, but I feel better that somebody's cared enough to listen. Whereas some people go, stop talking about it, Claire. I'm sick of you talking about this thing. And you go, okay, cool, you know, and move on. But if someone actually really listens, it's a very kind gesture. So there are many ways of being generous, but ultimately there is this bodhicitta mind of wishing all beings, friends, enemies, strangers, everybody, to be free of suffering and to have happiness. And that's your sort of your motivation for. That's why we say the prayer at the beginning of teachings and meditations, that we sort of set our mind to this thinking of others and wishing to become free ourselves. And so I've been talking about the Four Noble Truths. And last week we talked about the first truth, and they call them the Arya Truths, is a more accurate description, translation, I think. It's the truth that the Buddha discovered when he actually became enlightened. He sat down under the tree, and the Bodhi tree, in the final stages, he'd been meditating for years and years and years and worked very hard on his mind and became enlightened. And these were the four things that occurred to him, the main things that occurred to him. That life is suffering. So there is the truth of suffering, the truth of the cause of suffering. There are causes of suffering. The truth of cessation. There is an end to suffering. He discovered nirvana. He discovered a way to be free of suffering. And the fourth Arya truth is the path to nirvana, the path of cessation. So tonight I was going to, going back to what I was talking about last week with the life of the Buddha, I left a bit out where he had studied all the Hindu texts and practices and was meditating with his friends. And a lot of the Hindu thing is ascetic practices, you know, standing on one foot or sitting up a tree for years, or and a lot of sort of deprivation and fasting and practices that actually might help at some level to get into deep states of meditation. And there is a place for fasting in this tradition, and not sort of overindulging in things. But what happened to the Buddha was he was very, he was really intense about his practice and took it very, very seriously. And he was basically eating a grain of rice a day or something. He was starving himself, and that was one of the practices, which you deprive yourself of all worldly pleasures, all worldly stuff, and that was seen in the Hindu thing as the path to whatever it is. It's not exactly enlightenment, but the path to freedom. And so he was basically dying and lying on the side of the road, and probably would have passed away, but a woman came along and gave him some milk and rice, and it revived him. And it was a kind of profound realisation for him that he felt clearer in his mind. He actually felt better for eating, and that it gave him some clarity, and he was able to actually meditate better through having nourished his body. And so he then just realised that it's not through all these intense ascetic practices and depriving yourself. You need to look after yourself physically as well as mentally. So he then that's when he separated from his friends and kind of went off and did it differently, and that they were a little bit upset with him that he was not, you know, he was feeding himself and looking after himself, and then he went off on his own and became enlightened. And then when he became enlightened, they sort of realised that something had happened, something profound had gone on, and he taught them what he knew, and then they kind of became enlightened too. They practiced what he was practicing as well. So that was the bit that I left out last week, and it's fairly important. And it is this thing of the middle way. It's like you don't take things to extremes of thinking, you know, I have to do this. And often, especially when you're new to these practices, some people come in and they're really full on and they take it very, very seriously, and that's great. But and I've seen it over the years. They get very, very strict with themselves about it all, and then I think it just becomes too hard, and we don't see them again. So, you know, you be kind to yourself with all of this. And as I was saying last week, I get overwhelmed with my emotions and with anger and desire and jealousy and pride and all of those things. But I don't kind of beat myself up too much. I just step back and go on. And you can actually use one of the nice things about this tradition is that you use all of these emotions in your practice. And the meditation that we'll do in a minute, it sort of helps in a way how to do this. By actually observing your emotions, it dissipates them almost immediately. It's a very simple practice, but normally we're controlled by our running emotions, our mind going crazy. But if you take a moment to look at your mind and what it's doing, you then you can begin to gain some control over that. But until now, it's just been controlling us. We just go from this to this to this to this, you know, and not really aware of what we're doing. And we wonder why we're unhappy, because we're just sort of jumping from one thing to the other. And the basic human thing is we want to be happy. Everything we do is in order that we find some happiness. So why isn't it working? Why aren't we happy? So the second noble truth is the causes of suffering, that there are causes. And basically Buddhism says that the causes of our suffering are attachment, aversion and ignorance. So when we think about our physical and mental well-being, everything is about your physical actions, your speech and your mental actions, your mind. So any feelings that we have regarding physical or speech or whatever, any feelings or emotions that come from these it comes back to mental states of mind. So the physical affects our mental state of mind. So that our emotions and feelings are driven by mental states. So then it follows that there's mental causes for, we can mentally actually address these things, whether it's physical or emotional. It comes back to states of mind. So one of the way that describes that it happens is, you say visual sense, you see something, but there's a moment of delay. There's actually, your eye sense has made contact with the object. Then you have this mental process of creating an image in your mind, and then with that comes some sense of good feeling or bad feeling, whether it's you see someone or something that you like or you don't like. So there's this sort of step-by-step process that creates a feeling. Then at that time it's fairly neutral. You've got a good or a bad feeling, but you decide you don't want the bad feeling, but you do want the good feeling. So from that, from the good feeling from, you know, seeing a piece of cake or even tasting a piece of cake, you exaggerate that sensation into something that is just outstanding and amazing and incredible, and you want more of it. And yes, there was a nice taste there, but we go, oh my God, it's the most amazing piece of cake that on the earth, and all of my whole life is dependent on this piece of cake right now. And you just create this story about a piece of cake, and you have to have it. And some people do have chocolate addictions. You know, they really have to. It's so important to them to have chocolate. I have a friend, her husband hides the chocolate in the house. They both have the addiction, but he's got more control on her, and he hides it so that they try to have some control. But there's this story going on about how important chocolate is, and then we have to have it, and we're really unhappy if we don't. But it's a process that's happened in our mind that's created this story. Now, if we were just to sort of accept it, yeah, chocolate tastes nice, and whether I have it or not, it doesn't really matter. But we don't always do that. Generally, we're sort of really grasping, and it's what I need in the moment, and that's what's causing me the suffering. It's not that someone took the chocolate away that's causing me the suffering. It's my mental grasping at the importance of the chocolate, and that goes for, you know, it goes for everything that we do in life. And also that it's really transitory. If you look into the chocolate cake and find out where is the chocolateness in the chocolate cake, where is the actual sort of amazing thing in the chocolate cake, and analyse that piece of chocolate cake and the different ingredients that have gone into it, and break it down into all its parts, you can't actually find which part of the chocolate cake is this thing that I'm grasping onto. It doesn't really exist. So we're actually sort of grasping onto things that in fact don't exist the way we think they exist. The chocolate cake exists, but not in the way that we've projected onto it. So it's this extra stuff that we layer onto things that is causing us the problem. And if we saw things the way that they really were, and that gets into the truth of cessation and the path of cessation, is analysing how things really exist, then you start to just let go. It's like, why would I bother feeling so upset about something that isn't really there? Because some people don't like chocolate. They haven't created a story about chocolate in their head. They're not attached to it. So who's right? You know, where is the absolute, my happiness is wrapped up in this chocolate cake? Doesn't exist. And these are hard things to get your head around a bit at first, but what we'll do is a bit of meditation, and it's with meditation that we start to sort of analyse our mind and our processes, how we do this to ourselves, how we create these stories, how we get so angry about things. You know, every now and then something will happen, and I'm in such a rage that it's too late, you know. If I'm meditating properly, if I'm being really good in meditating properly and doing my daily practices, I don't get to that state. But when I'm getting slack about my meditation and I'm not paying attention, it creeps back in. It creeps up on me, and I'll realise. But, you know, the good thing, I hope after all these years, I'm pretty well aware when it's happening straight away. Sometimes it's with hindsight, but sometimes I'm like, yeah, I'm in this really intense state, but it's okay. And just if you analyse in the moment, you can often dissipate the anger and hopefully not cause too much damage before you back calm down a bit. That's the other thing. When we're distracted by this intense attachment or anger, we make very poor decisions. Our mind is not in a true state. It's in this deluded state of creating a deluded story about something or someone. And so our mind is already in a deluded state. So our decisions based on that deluded state are not going to be very good. They're going to be, they'll, you know, extend the delusion and cause damage to oneself or others in the meantime. And then you can look back and say, you know, why did I say that? And it was only because I was self-cherishing and self-grasping at what I thought that I needed in the moment. And then I realised it was all just a big, you know, sort of made-up story in my head, and I reacted really badly. And then I go, oh my God. So we'll do a bit of meditation. So when you're meditating, it does bring your mind into a more truthful state, a more sort of open and clear state where you can hopefully make good decisions in the moment, or not get to the state where you're out of control. So, look, I thought I'd describe Geshe Doga, who is the Lama that lives here. He teaches here. What page was it? Yeah. There's a few books by him. Yeah, I think they're in the bookshop. This is a fairly new one, and he just gives lovely, lovely descriptions of how to do things. So I went through this last week basically, but tonight I thought I might read his description of just how to sit and how to meditate. And it's basically, it's called the 7-point Vairocana. So Vairocana is one of the deities that, it's the meditation position that you sit in. So you just bring your mind inwards. Close your eyes, but not completely. Let some light in. And just take a moment to bring your mind inwards, letting go of the day. So one places one's right hand on top of the left palm, with the thumbs touching to form a triangle. Place your hands 4 inches below the navel, with the tips of the thumbs touching the navel centre. So you sort of turn your thumbs just inwards below the navel. The significance of this position is that the thumbs have nerve endings known as subtle energy channels, which are related to bodhicitta. When the tips of the thumbs touch the navel centre, it relaxes the channels, which in turn relax the body and facilitate the development of bodhicitta. For those interested in meditation, this is something significant to experience. Keep the backbone straight. The relevance of this is that it prevents the two extreme states of excitement and laxity. So when we straighten the body, we can see that it clears the mind and helps the body. Straightening the physical body also helps straighten the energy channels. So then the wind energy can flow clearly, unobstructed. This in turn helps the mind, unobstructed, and this in turn helps the mind. Shoulders and arms are relaxed in a natural state, free of being too tense or crouched, and free of being too loose, which also causes drowsiness. Having a natural relaxed body with the airflow through the armpits helps prevent laxity. The head is straight, bent forward but not too much, and the chin perpendicular to the chest. Having the head too high causes excitement, whilst having the head too low causes dullness and laxity. When we find the right alignment of the head, this also helps to prevent excitement and laxity. The eyes are not too open or too closed, again to stop excitement or laxity. If the eyes are closed, we may think it is suitable for our focus, but if the eyes are shut for a long time, one experiences darkness in one's mind. So one keeps the eyes slightly open, with the eyesight lowered to the tip of one's nose. In relation to the jaw and the mouth, be free of the extreme of the mouth being too open. This dries one's mouth and is an obstacle to long meditation. Have the lips slightly open for ventilation, even though we don't breathe through the mouth. The tongue tip touching the palate. So the tip of your tongue is at the back of the palate, back of the teeth, the top palate. This prevents too much saliva from forming in the mouth and prevents drooling. Also, touching the palate prevents the mouth drying out and keeps it moist. These details are necessary if we wish to preserve a long meditation. So there are 7 points, and the 8th, which is to regulate the breath. Altogether, these are called the sitting posture of the Buddha Vairocana. So now, just focusing on the breath. And just following the inflow and the outflow of the breath. And with mindfulness, it's keeping the mind on the breath. And then with introspection, just watching as the mind drifts off and bring it back to focus on the breath. And keeping the breath even flow in and even flow out. And then try to mentally watch the breath more than the physical sensation. Just watch it with your mind. Bringing your mind back, focusing on the breath. letting any thoughts just pass and bringing your mind back. Now I'll move into a meditation on the clarity of the mind. Your consciousness or mind is whatever you are experiencing at the moment. Sensations in your body, thoughts, feelings, perceptions of sounds, and so forth. The nature of each of these experiences is clarity, without form or colour, space-like pure awareness. Focus your attention on this clear, pure nature of mind. Initially, it might be difficult to find the actual object that is clarity. If so, meditate on the mental image of clarity. One way to generate such an image is to visualize space. Imagine lying on a hilltop and staring up at a sky that is completely clear and free of clouds. Concentrate on this vast, unobstructed emptiness. Imagine that it flows down and embraces you and your surroundings. Everything becomes empty like space. Hold this experience. Feel that the nature of your mind is like this clear, empty space. Thoughts and distractions will arise, but do not react to them. Neither follow them nor reject them. Remember that they are clear by nature, without substance. Simply watch them come and go, and then return to the awareness of the mind's clarity. Don't think about anything during this meditation. There is no need to wonder what the mind is. Simply observe it, its clear nature, which is infinite, which is like infinite empty space. That is sufficient. Just be natural. Meditation is simple and natural. Concentration means holding the mind on an object continuously without forgetting it. The automatic result of concentration is awareness, which is free of concepts. A light does not need to think, I am dispelling darkness. It simply illuminates. Awareness is an inner light that enables us to see things more clearly. It dispels the heaviness of how things appear to us, thus weakening our clinging or aversion to them. Okay, so just gently bringing the mind back to the room. So with attachment and anger, there are actual meditations that are antidotes to these things as well. So with attachment, they say that if you have strong attachment to something or someone, you think about the negative aspects of that object, because, like I say, we're creating this story about how wonderful something is. If we start to sort of analyse and really look at the object, we might see that it's not as wonderful as we think it is. And they say that with, and this sort of, it's quite shocking the first time you hear it, with attachment to other people, like with desirous attachment, and that thing of you've met someone and you've got to have them kind of thing, and you have this really strong crush or attachment to somebody. And attachment, we sometimes, you know, we'll see it as a good thing. We associate it with love and wanting love, and so we don't necessarily see it as a bad thing. But what it is a disturbing state of mind, and it is, as I said before, it's this exaggerated, deluded state of mind that, in the end, causes us suffering. So even that kind of just that disturbed state that we get into with attachment is a form of suffering. It's not a calm, peaceful, happy mind. And we think that we'll be happy when we get the object. But then that comes with its own set of problems even when you do as well. So then that becomes another form of suffering as well. So they say that to meditate on the negative aspects of a person. So you have an attachment for others' bodies. So when you actually analyse the body, you're sort of thinking, well, what am I actually attached to? Is it the bones? If I peel back the skin, is that attractive? Is it, you know, when you think of the inner organs, is that what I'm attracted to? You know, is it all of the guts and the heart and the lungs? And, you know, when you watch medical shows and they cut someone open, is that the gorgeousness that you're attracted to? So it's about sort of analysing what you're really looking at, what you're really going crazy about. And also, you know, we produce some pretty filthy substances from our bodies as well. And we ooze, you know, pimples and blood and scabs and dandruff, and, you know, it's so, you know, we're not, you know, especially Western society with going to the gym and Bondi Beach and stuff, you know, body beautiful and all of that sort of thing. And they say, oh, and you know, and it's almost a hippie thing, you know, the body is beautiful and stuff. But Buddhism says, no, it's not. So again, we've got all these stories about what's going on. And it's not saying, they're not saying don't, you know, go around going, oh, you're disgusting, you know, sort of to everybody. But it's about just sort of being realistic. And the impermanence. You know, we're clinging on to things. We think our happiness is there. But people change, relationships change, nothing stays the same, really. And ultimately we die, you know. So there's the terrible suffering of parting, of the grief that comes with, you know, that most of us have probably been touched by, so that even a really happy relationship is going to end in suffering at some point. So there's no point in being too attached, even if you have a really lovely relationship, which is a wonderful thing, and it means that there's a lot of caring going on if it's working. You still don't need to be attached to the point where it's going to cause you suffering when you part. And if you really loved somebody, say the relationship broke down or they left you, and you would actually be happy for them that they've found happiness somewhere else or whatever, which is usually what's incredibly painful, relationship breakdowns. But it's based on attachment. It's based on what I'm getting out of this. So usually we're thinking love, I love you because you make me happy. But then you do something that doesn't make me happy. And so then I don't love you anymore. So was that real love? So Buddhism says the definition of love in Buddhism, and in Buddhism they have definitions for everything. The Dalai Lama says this isn't, he says really this shouldn't be called a religion, it's a science. And it's just analysing what's really going on. So the definition of love in Buddhism is wanting the other to be happy. And it's not what I'm getting out of it. It's I don't love you because, but I love you and I want you to be happy. That's what it means. So whatever happens, you're thinking of their happiness, what's best for them. And that's very hard for us. It's very hard to do. But it's, again, there are meditations. And I'll do the meditation on love in a minute. So the antidote to attachment is to think about the reality of the object that you're attached to and how long is it going to last. So is it worth my investing all my everything in this, so that knowing that it's going to end one way or another, am I going to, with my crazy mind, grab onto it as if it's not going to end or change? And it's, again, it's not to say don't have relationships, don't have chocolate cake. It's saying, yes, you can enjoy these things, but just don't cling on to them as if they're going to last forever. And that you don't cling on to them because you know, I want happiness. It's not. So when we've got this thing of self-cherishing going on, it's doomed, because there is nothing that can fulfill that self-cherishing, because it's deluded. You're actually investing in something that doesn't exist, so it's going to not work. Does that make sense? Yeah, I'm getting a few nods. So it's through meditation and through controlling our mind and through watching our mind and through watching ourselves doing these things that, and when we meditate we get better at watching, that it's less painful. It actually works. It's, you know, I have found that personal experience of maybe having trouble with a friend or a relationship or something, I seem to be able to maybe I just haven't invested as much in it, and then it's not as painful when a friend sort of moves away, and I'm not as attached when I make new friends, or when I'm with people, I'm not thinking, oh, you're really funny, I like hanging around with you, I want to be with you all the time. It's not that sort of. It is this kind of balance. Things become a little bit more balanced. You're not sort of as extreme in your emotions. Okay, well, and the same, it's the same with anger. We invest, I invest a lot in my anger. It's without fail backfires on me, no matter. Every time I lose it, I haven't gained anything. It's not going to work, and it doesn't work, and it never fails that it hasn't worked. And we think that by being angry and the other person might have done something. They might be wrong. They might have done something hurtful or wrong or whatever, but by my responding with anger, it's only made the situation worse. And so the antidote to anger is love and compassion. And there are lots of ways in Buddhism of looking at how not to get angry. And one thing is, if with your enemy, the person that really gets your goat, that presses your buttons, the person at work or at home or sibling or something. Siblings usually know how to press your buttons. It's by understanding, if you're able to kind of know their story or understand, ask yourself, why did they behave that way, or what's going on here, you can generally, if you give yourself that space to kind of figure out what they're doing, it's often, they might be threatened, or they might be needy, something hasn't worked out for them. There's a cause for their behaving badly, and you also understand that, I would like to think that even when I got angry, that someone understood why I was angry. But generally they don't. They just, you're so angry, and you get into trouble because you've been angry. But I've been angry for a reason, and if people understood, they'd understand that, I had a right to be angry, but I don't. So it's that, by understanding my own responses to things, then you can sort of understand other people's responses to things. And it's a way of developing compassion, because I would like to think that they would have compassion for me or understand. And when people do understand where you're coming from and that they can help, it's a wonderful thing. So if you can actually understand, I'm a teacher and I worked with disengaged kids, 15, 16-year-old boys, and it's a kind of an alternative setting where we do pre-trades. They're kids that haven't functioned too well in mainstream schools. These are angry people. It's mostly boys. We have girls as well, but mostly boys. And they skits it big time, and you're dealing with these situations. But generally, because, and you can see it with kids. We try to know their stories, and you'll understand why a child behaves the way they behave, and that by being kind to them, it really works. By actually responding with kindness to someone that's really upset, just really works. And I think sometimes with these kids, you know, they've been yelled at, and I yell at them too sometimes, but it's meaningless. It's water off a duck's back to a lot of teenagers that, you know, they get yelled at all the time and it's kind of meaningless. So getting upset by some sort of behaviour doesn't work from my side. But by being kind, it actually dissipates it. Or telling them that you understand what's going on, you can see what's happened and you understand, which is generally not what people get when they're upset and angry. Everyone wants to run a mile or kick you out of the classroom or something. But it is really helpful by just being that whole thing of loving kindness. It really works. So we'll do a meditation on that. And then I'll open it up to questions. This book, the Kathleen MacDonald book, is very good. I think a lot of you probably know it. But she does a little talk like I'm talking, and then she does a meditation. So I always refer back to her. So I won't read the bit of talk that she does. I'll just go straight into the meditation. But I highly recommend this book if you're looking for something to start you off with different meditations. Okay, so just sitting comfortably, bring your mind inwards, relax your body and mind, and let all thoughts and worries subside. Now just mindfully observe the breath. And think that you are doing this meditation for the benefit of yourself and others, to generate more positive, loving energy in your mind and to send it out to others and to the world. So start by imagining all living beings around you. Your mother is on your left, your father is on your right, and other relatives and friends are around and behind you. Visualize in front of you those you dislike or who have hurt you, and extending in every direction right to the horizon are all other beings. Feel that they are there, all in human form, sitting quietly like you. If it is difficult to visualize all beings, think of as many as you can comfortably. Stay relaxed. Don't feel crowded or tense, but imagine that a sense of harmony and peace pervades everyone. Consider how nice it would be for yourself and others if you were able to love all these beings. Contemplate that everyone wants to be happy and to avoid suffering. just as you do. They're all trying to make the best of their lives, even those who are angry and violent. Now generate a feeling of love in your heart. You can do this by thinking of someone you love and letting your natural good feelings for this person arise. You might like to imagine your love as a warm, bright light, not physical, but pure, positive energy glowing in your heart. Before you can truly love others, you need to love yourself. Loving yourself means accepting yourself as you are, with your present faults and shortcomings, and recognizing that you have the potential to free yourself from all your problems. So really wish yourself all the happiness and goodness there is. Imagine that the warm energy in your heart expands until it completely fills your body and mind. If you have the habit of being critical, judgmental, and even angry towards yourself, it will take time to change this, so you probably will not suddenly feel love for yourself. But if you say to yourself, "May I be happy, may I have what I need to feel happy, safe, loved and satisfied," and so forth, then gradually these thoughts and feelings will grow and become genuine. It's enough for now just to think this way and say these words to yourself. Now meditate on love for others. Start with your family and close friends sitting near you. Say in your mind words such as, "May you be happy. May you have what you need to feel happy, safe, loved and satisfied. May all your thoughts be positive and all your experiences good. May you be free of problems, sickness and sadness. May our lives be long and peaceful, and may you quickly reach enlightenment." Imagine the warm, luminous energy radiating from your body, touching them and filling their bodies and minds, bringing them happiness, bringing them the happiness they wish for. Again, don't worry if you don't actually feel love. It's enough to say these words and think these thoughts. In time, the feeling will come. Then next, think of some people you are not so close to. They could be people you work with, neighbours, fellow shoppers in the supermarket, fellow drivers on the road. Reflect that they, just like you, want to be happy and deserve to be happy. See if you can feel the wish for them to be happy by thinking, may you be happy. May you have what you need to feel happy, safe, loved and satisfied. May all your thoughts be positive and all your experiences good. May you be free of problems, sickness and sadness. May your lives be long and peaceful, and may you quickly reach enlightenment. Then send the radiant energy of love from your heart to them and imagine that they experience the happiness they wish for. Lastly, turn your attention to the people in front of you, those you have difficulty with. Contemplate that they also need and deserve your love. Wish them to be free of the confusion, anger, and self-centeredness that drive them to act the way they do. Really want them to find peace of mind, happiness, and finally enlightenment. Think and try to feel sincerely. May you be happy. May you have what you need to feel happy, safe, loved and satisfied. May all your thoughts be positive and all your experiences good. May you be free of problems, sickness and sadness. May your lives be long and peaceful, and may you quickly reach enlightenment. Imagine that the radiant energy of love flows from your heart to them and that they experience the happiness they wish for. Continue to send your positive, warm feelings out to all the other people around you. Love is an unlimited spring of good energy, so you shouldn't worry that it will run out. Completely open your heart and imagine that your love flowing to every direction, reaching all the beings who are lonely, sick, hungry, confused, oppressed, frustrated, frightened. Their suffering disappears and their minds become peaceful, clear, full of pure happiness. Wish them to have every good experience, from the satisfaction of ordinary needs and desires all the way to enlightenment. Concentrate on this feeling of love. Now think that you definitely have the potential to love everyone, even those who annoy or hurt you, and those you don't even know. Generate a strong wish to work on your own anger, impatience, selfishness, and other problems that prevent you from having such love. Keeping your mind open and trying to overcome ego's prejudiced attitudes will leave much space in your heart for pure, universal love, and thus happiness for yourself and others to develop. So we dedicate the positive energy of your meditation to all beings and the wish that they find happiness and enlightenment. And just bring your mind back to the room. So it's a bit after 8. If anyone's got any questions. You all good? Look, there's a meditation for that too that I toss up which ones to. There's lots of really cool meditations, but I'll repeat the question for the microphone. Is that so? Your question was how to. I said that by observing your emotions, you can dissipate them. Is that right? Yeah. And what was that about the appointment with the doctor? So it's giving you anxiety to go to the doctor or the dentist? Yes. Okay. So, yeah, I don't like going to the dentist. It's that thing again of analysing the chocolate cake. It's if you analyse the emotion, if you look into the emotion, if you just bring your mind in and first of all ask yourself exactly where is the anger and you look for it, it's quite, it is this, it's just a feeling. So where did the anger come from? Did it come from the person that just cut me off in traffic? Or did it come from me being stressed about other things and generally having sort of, not anger in my heart, but I might be upset about something that happened at work and then someone cuts me off in traffic and I overreact to that person in the traffic. So when I look for the anger, was it the person in the traffic or was it my mind that was being driven by something that had happened earlier in the day? And why did I get upset by that thing that happened earlier in the day? I have to look at that, and what upset me was my self-cherishing. And if I look into my self-cherishing, I think, well, where exactly does that exist, and where exactly does the I that I think is so important, how does that exist as well? And that's what, when we get into the truth of cessation and the path to cessation, you start to look at things that deeply, is where exactly does this exist? And that's being a big sort of heavy analytical way of looking at it. But just by the act of looking inwards and saying, right, I'm really angry, and just looking inwards in that moment, you're taking some control over that emotion. That emotion doesn't have so much control over you in that moment. When you acknowledge it. If you're not acknowledging what's driving you, if you're not acknowledging the anger, it will continue to drive you. But once you're acknowledging that this is happening and you're watching it, you're taking some sense of control in that moment. And there are meditations where, with pain even, like physical pain, you can meditate and analyse the pain. And, you know, it might not always work, but I heard a story, Neil was telling me a story earlier of someone who was in pain, and he talked to them about this, of just watching the pain, and a week later, is that right, Neil, that he came back and told you that he felt it had helped?
It was more the fact that he was feeling unhappy. And,
it was emotional pain, was it? Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
he was feeling depressed and what have you because of the pain.
Yeah.
And I told him that the pain that wasn't necessarily cause for being unhappy.
Right.
Separate the two.
Oh, okay. That's nice. Yeah. So I should repeat that. Now, Neil was saying that his friend had pain and was unhappy, and that by analysing what was it? The pain.
I just said that it was not the unhappiness could be separated from the pain.
The unhappiness, the emotions, yeah, could be separated from the pain. But it's just that thing of watching your mind, watching the emotions. And yes, rather than them controlling you. So by indulging in the pain and going, oh, I can't stand this pain, I hate this pain, I wish this pain would go away, it's not going to help. So that a lot of the pain then becomes mental pain as well. In your mind, you're freaking out about the pain and worrying about the pain, and you're mentally distressing yourself. So that if you can say, right, I have pain, but I'm going to keep my mind calm, and you can do meditations and stuff or whatever, but just not over-indulge in the pain, there's less. And they actually, I think there have been scientific studies done of that, is it something like 95%? Is projection. Like what we experience is mostly a projection of our mind. So that if we can really experience things without over telling these stories, just creating so much more out of it. And, you know, you call people drama queens because they overreact, and some people react to a situation completely differently, to exactly the same situation. So it's the stories that we're telling ourselves. Yes?
Thank you very much.
Okay.
When you're talking about self-cherishing, I kind of think in a way like in our society it's quite materialistic and competitive. And so to some extent maybe some aspects of self-cherishing is almost like a self-protective measure. I wonder to what extent in a healthy sense of self-cherishing we have like good self-confidence and self-esteem, but you're not allowing to put a power in your mind. How can you get that balance?
Self-confidence. Yeah. Yeah. So the difference between self-cherishing and having some kind of not.
No, it seems like it's almost like self-cherishing is getting in the way of our happiness. So I wondered, in terms of our own sensibility and self-cherishing, we kind of dissolve that within ourselves, but also maintain a healthy balance to function well in society, because you need some aspect of self-cherishing to function in the world.
Right. So the question is that if you're with self-cherishing, if you're getting rid of your self-cherishing, then you need something to help you function in the world without, and you think that you can't without some sense of self-cherishing. So, the thing is, it's the self-cherishing that's causing you not to function. And that by removing the self-cherishing, you're relaxing, you're able to see things more clearly, and you have more control and you have more self-confidence. It's the self-cherishing that's causing the problem. So it's not like, it's sort of like you think that by letting go of all these things, well, what's the point of living? if I let go of all my desires and attachments, and if I don't get angry and protect myself, you know, how am I going to protect myself if I don't get upset at things when people do things, bad things? But that's not how it works. It's actually those things that we grasp onto, that it's the grasping that's causing us the problem. And so the self-cherishing is actually causing the problems in our lives. And without it, when we've got less, and it's not about being a doormat. You do need to, yes, of course you need to protect yourself, but without being angry and without retaliating. But yes, of course, protect yourself. And you know, one thing is there's no harm in removing yourself from a situation, of just walking away or not engaging in a situation, and or speaking your mind. Absolutely, stand up, but without anger. And we're only angry because we're protecting this. We get upset about ourselves. We're cherishing ourselves. But if you've actually got concern for the other person, even though they're behaving badly. But if you realise that they're causing themselves a lot of problems, I know what anger does. They're causing themselves a lot of problems, alienation from people. You can lose your job or relationships or whatever through anger. If you sort of understand that, then you will have compassion for them rather than get angry at them. You'll sort of understand that, my goodness, you're causing a terrible situation for yourself here. But yes, of course, protect yourself. You don't stand in harm's way. But you can also develop compassion for the people that are harming you by thinking about what the karma that they're creating for themselves. And they're not happy. When someone's angry, they're they're disturbed and unhappy. They often look ugly. You know, you pull faces and stuff, get really upset. But so they're not happy. So you can feel compassion for them because they're causing themselves to suffer even more. But yes, the self-cherishing isn't, you don't need self-cherishing to function. It's the self-cherishing that's the glitch that's getting in your way. And without it, then you have more confidence because you've done nothing wrong and you're not, you feel better about yourself and calmer and more focused. You actually find that you can actually focus on things better, so you will do your job better. You'll whatever you're involved in, you'll actually be more focused and more competent. So it brings, by letting go of all of these negative things, it brings a much stronger sense of confidence and ability to function. Thank you. We might leave it there. So thank you all for coming. Oh, sorry, another question. Yeah.
I'm assuming I hope I'm right in assuming that Buddhism is not about changing anybody, and so always about personal reflection. But is there any sort of Buddhist approach to changing people through love, or showing them your love, or any sort of facet of that, and sort of just trying to, I guess,
trying to bring them.
Is there any way to sort of help change or alter a person's perspective?
Yep.
Love.
So the first part is Buddhism. You're saying Buddhism isn't about necessarily forcing change, yeah, and that is there some way that you can change someone through love, whatever, yeah. Now there's no. This is just me talking, yeah, but it is the perspective that, you know, of course there's no guarantee that you're going to be able to change a situation. Sometimes it will work, sometimes it won't. It's, you know, I see this quite clearly with the kids that I work with. Sometimes just by being really kind and supportive to a child, they just turn around and respond really well, and it really helps them, and it helps the whole situation. But sometimes they don't. They just, you know, they're not They're not willing to be open to that. And I can't have the expectation that they have to respond to my love, you know. But what you are doing is you're helping yourself in that situation. If you're in a difficult situation with someone that is not happy, that they're maybe behaving badly or they're really unhappy, and you want to really help them, and you're doing these practices of sending out love and practicing wishing them to be happy and get what they need to feel happy, you're helping your own mind in that situation rather than getting... It's distressing watching someone suffer in whatever situation they're in. It's really disturbing for the people around them. And so that's not helpful. By having your own mind in an unhappy state isn't helpful either. So these practices help you to keep a sense of equilibrium and a sense of peace and a sense of happiness even in a difficult situation, while you're wishing the best for the other person. And the thing is, if the Buddha could fix us all, he would. You know, if beings that, you know, Geshe Doga, Geshe Doga is so happy. If you ever come on a Wednesday night and see Geshe Doga talking, he's well into it. He's in his 80s and he's very, very happy. If he teaches year in, year out, if he could just wave a magic wand with his love and fix us, he would. This is about you have to free yourself. And so someone like Geshe Doga, he is freeing minds. He is giving people tools and liberating people from their suffering by just teaching consistently. He just teaches, and everything he says is really magic and incredibly helpful. So all the people that come in here, they get some help for their suffering or their situation or some tools. And that's what he kind of lives and breathes for. That's what his existence is, just to try and teach people these things, how to do it. So, you know, on the one hand, you might not be able to actually help this person, but then again, they might respond to these things. But you are helping yourself. And that it is that thing, it's the more that you can free yourself, then you'll be useful to others. But we're all in our own kind of mad states as well. We need help ourselves. So you've got to help yourself first before you're actually able to, because then you will, you know, otherwise you do fall apart. It gets too hard. It's too difficult. So you just sort of slowly work on your own mind and you keep your own mind in peace and happiness. And again, Geshe Doga, you know, he came from Tibet. He fled Tibet in 1959 when a lot of the monks and lamas followed the Dalai Lama out of Tibet in 1959 when he left. And never saw his family again. Never went back there. You know, it's an incredibly beautiful place, and has seen many of his friends die, and you know, whether it was in Tibet or from illness when they came out of Tibet, a lot of them died, got very sick in India, and you know, people was just, he's a refugee. He's lived in this country and stuff and never went back there, never saw his... So, you know, terrible, terrible things, these people. And this is happening all over the world in lots of different situations with terrible things. But Geshe Doga he says, I'm happy. And he talks about some of the stories of when he walked out of Tibet and stuff. But his mind was clear. And the terrible things that he's been through, he's nearly died himself from, you know, illness or whatever. And he just said, my mind was clear. So, you know, he's a great inspiration for this is where it takes you, if you do these meditations. And just that simple breathing meditation is a very, very powerful tool that stops the discursive thoughts that is what's controlling us. We then gain some sense of control over our own minds. And I think it does benefit the people around you at the end of the day. It does help the people around you. My family, and I say this every time, that, my family say, whatever it is you're doing, Claire, keep doing it. So, we'll leave it there. So, thank you. There's tea and cake in the dining room.